Chapter 38. Speaking about the primary reason to all the mitzvahs that we have. That's basically the idea of this chapter. Continuing to explain how the Torah basically specifically requests our physical actions, even though they might seem that the whole idea might seem very simplistic. Anyone that just has a hand can put on tefillin without using his mind, without using his brain, without using his emotions. What is the whole point? And this is one of the chidushim of Matan Torah. There is a question that is brought down in Chassidus, and the question is, why did Hashem need to have what we call Matan Torah? We read about it last parsha. There were miracles there, the blowing shofar, right? The miracle of being able to see what we usually hear what we usually see. The meaning is also a whole interesting, different concept. What does that mean? What's the miracle there? That was another miracle. The entire world was silent. That's another miracle. Why did Hashem need to perform so many miracles to give us the Torah? We know it's a present, it's a gift that Hashem gives us. This is maybe the only gift that Hashem ever gave anyone. It's His Torah, it's very precious, but it's information. Torah is information. Why does it have to be a whole show behind it? And the truth is that the information was even known in the past. Avraham knew most of the information. Yitzchak knew the information. He could have taught that to. And you know what? Another interesting thing is that anyways, he needed to teach the Jews the information afterwards. Moshe Rabbeinu was there for 40 days and 40 nights. Why was he there for so long? He was studying the Torah with Hashem. And after that, he came down and he taught that to us. So most of it wasn't even written. What we know today is the oral Torah. If you open the Gemara always asks the most famous question is, Mai Taima, or Mina Hanemidi. From where's the source to this idea? Most of the times, Halacha LaMoshe Misinai. For example, by Sukkah, the Gemara says that the Sukkah has to have at least 2 full doors and one other tefach as a third door. That's the minimal size of the Sukkah.
Tefach only?
Tefach like this. Like this.
The third wall must be only 1 tefach?
Yes. It's enough if it's just 1 tefach. The Gemara says, where's the source to that? The Gemara says, Halacha LaMoshe Misinai. That was a law given to Moses at Sinai. Doesn't say it in the written Torah. Doesn't say it in the tablets. But that was Moshe Rabbeinu studying the entire Torah, including the commands that were told to him by Hashem, so to speak, face to face, nothing written. And he passed that on from one rabbi to the other. That's the whole idea of smicha, passing on from one generation to the second generation, all the traditions. The written Torah, the oral Torah was written only in the times of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, when he saw that Am Yisrael are at exile and it's going to be very, very difficult, very hard for them to maintain. This is very interesting. I saw a video not long ago of the Rabbi. This was someone speaking about his private audience, personal experience with the Rabbi. And he said, the Rabbi told him, if you look about it, the Jewish nation is the only nation that is so antique. Such an old nation. So he immediately thought what probably some of you are thinking, but wait a second, what about the Chinese? Chinese are also pretty antique. You can say that the European, American nations are not that, let's say, they're not that antique. Some, maybe perhaps certain tribes are, but most of them, let's say, are not. But what about the Chinese? They have their traditions. So the Rebbe said it's 2 things. First of all, they were not exiled. They were always in their land. So it's easier to maintain your tradition if you are in your homeland. But the Jews, we were always sent from one exile to the other. But we still kept our tradition. It's an interesting observation. But the point is that, yes, at a certain point, Rabbi Yonasi said, you're going to exile. If you're not going to write these things down, you're going to forget them. That is the whole idea of the oral Torah that was written down. But initially, this was said to Moshe Sinai. So, in other words, question is, why do we need this whole performance of Matan Torah? And a long story short, the idea is that Hashem not only transferred us information, but He changed the way that things are performed in the world. Until the moment of Matan Torah, the only way to connect to Hashem was spiritual, through the emotions, through the intellect. From that day onwards, Hashem basically came down to the world. By coming down to the world, it's not only to give us information, but it's to say that the moment you deal with worldly things, you are able to elevate it and bring it closer to me. The Midrash says a very interesting parable. And today, there are other parables that can also make it even... There, the Midrash says that there was a king that wanted to make a wall between Rome and Syria. The Roman Empire and Syria. And no one could cross from one side to the other. Until at one moment he decided to cross, and the moment he crossed, he also allowed everyone else to cross. That's that parable that the Midrash says, which means that there was a boundary, a big, big wall between materialism and spirituality, godliness. At Matan Torah, Hashem said, I will go down to Syria. I will go down to the material world, and therefore we can uplift and elevate the material world as well. Let's read more about it. We did read a lot inside, but we're going to start from the beginning, and we will read through this interesting chapter. So, Hanoch, please start for us the first paragraph, chapter 30.
Okay. In the light of all that has been said above, one will clearly understand the decision of halacha that has been laid down in the Talmud and codes, that meditation is not valid in lieu, which is without, right?
Yeah.
Of verbal articulation. So that if one has recited the Shema only in his mind and heart, even with the full force of his concentration, kavana, he has not fulfilled his obligation, and he is required to recite it again orally. Similarly, with grace after meals, which is ordained by the Torah, and with other benedictions ordained by the rabbis, and with prayer, on the other hand, if he has uttered them in his lips, but did not intend with his heart, he has fulfilled his obligation ex post facto, and he is not required to repeat them except for the first verse of the Shema and the first benediction of the Amidah. Thus it is stated at the beginning of chapter 2 of Berchot, up to where the commandment of intention, kavana, applies. From here on comes the commandment of recitation, and so on.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is again showing us how the most important part of our service that when we worship Hashem, is to make sure that it's brought down to the physical aspect. And here he brings, for example, the whole idea of tefillah and of limud. You have to pronounce it. It's not enough just to think it and to have the meaning, the intentions. It's nice, that's good, but it is not enough, and we need to make sure that we express it as well. There are certain parts where there is an importance to the meaning as well, like the Shema, because the Shema, without understanding what a person is saying, so there's no point l'chatchila. Which means there, the meaning has not only to do with the soul of the mitzvah, it has to do with the body of the mitzvah. It's like when a person person says, for example, when a person says Harei at makudeshetli, he marries a woman, he says the words that I'm marrying you. He has to understand what he's saying. Is that because you have to have kavanah in the mitzvah? No. It's just that you know what you're doing now. So when we say also the Shema, we have in mind the unity of Hashem, Achdus Hashem, that Hashem is one. We've got to think, well, Hashem is one, otherwise we're not fulfilling the mitzvah. But aside that, everything else does not require a special meaning, a special intention, or kavanah. Yes, Yaakov.
Well, I was thinking, like when you read a book, you're just looking at the words and thinking them. But if you're davening alone, and I didn't pronounce the words, but not really out loud, that's good enough.
So yeah, if you pronounce them, that's good enough.
Even though no one else can really hear me.
Yeah. You don't. It doesn't have to be something that's everyone hears or something like that.
Right.
But to pronounce the words, not to just think them.
Right.
Two different things.
I see that a lot on the bus.
Yeah.
Women reading Tehillim.
Yeah.
And they're doing it.
They pronounce
some of
it.
it.
Yeah, that's right. You wouldn't see that anywhere else. You're not going to see someone reading a novel pronouncing the words. Yeah. By the way, it helps for memory. That's sorry, there.
If you go into shul or somewhere,
Yeah.
alone reading out loud.
Right. That's better, of course. If someone can say it out loud, that people can. Yeah, it's even better. Kol atzmaisai tomarno. All of my bones say, declare. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue the next. The reason. Yaakov.
The reason is that the neshama needs no tikkun for herself by means of the commandments, but has only to draw forth light to perfect the vivifying soul and body by means of the letters of speech, which the nefesh pronounces with the aid of the 5 organs of verbal articulation. Similarly, with the active commandments which the nefesh performs with the aid of other bodily organs.
Right, so our neshama is not here for itself. It's not here for the intentions. It's not here for the kavanot. The neshama is well off, back up, closer to Hashem. That's where its natural area is. For the neshama to come down here, it's a big, big sacrifice. It does not feel comfortable in the body. The body is material. It has material needs. It prevents the neshama from really developing its connection to Hashem. So the neshama is not here for itself. The neshama is here for the body. That's why we have to get the body involved as well. Yes.
It is the NACHLAOT in the Gemara, if it was good for man to be created or not.
Right.
And the end result, if it was better,
Shalai nivra.
Shalom Nivra. So why?
Yeah, it's a good question. But once again, what we're saying here is that it's be'emet, it's not for the Adam itself. It's not for the neshama. It's to fix the body. It's to fix the world. What is known today as tikkun olam as well. So yes, that's one of the reasons. NACHLAOT Adam shelo nivra. NACHLAOT Adam shelo nivra. 100%. He's not, because we are here to fulfill the kavanah of Hashem behind the creation. It's very interesting. There's a Rabbi Cheskel Sofer, and he brings a very good example to show the productivity of the bees.
Mm-hmm.
And he says if you read about the way they function, the way they work, it's unbelievable. I think there's no existence of a bee not being part of producing the dvash, the honey. But even, and he says the male bees, they don't take part in that. And their only mission is to mate with the queen bee. And after that, they die. They fulfill their kavanah and that's it. It's not like they continue on living somewhere else or make their own living and something like that. No. It's all, everyone's so devoted to the purpose of them being here. So they don't have Bechirach of Shit. We have the Bechirach of Shit. But we are also here on this mission to make for Hashem a dirah. So we should, that's his point there, is to bring that we should learn from.
If it is not good for us, we must say thank you.
So yeah, it's question is what's the part NACHLAOT la'adam shelo nivra? Yeah, because the natural place of the neshama. But once you're here, there's so many things to be thankful for.
The point is not once you're here. The point is, why should we be here if it's not good for us?
Everything that you do is because it's good for you. Sometimes we do things and
we must say thank.
Yes, for the privilege of doing it. In Samach Vav, it's a whole hemshech of the Rabbi Rashab. Very, very, not deep, but some parts are very deep. Some parts are avodah, which is the service of Hashem. He speaks about different types of servants. Eved Pashut, Eved Ne'eman, a simple slave or a simple servant, a loyal servant, and then there's a level of a son. There's a level, several levels of serving Hashem. So one of the things that he speaks about the Eved Ne'eman, a loyal servant, is that his love in life is the master's love. His affection that he has in life, his it's all from the Adon. Yeah, that's Samach Vav. The Eved Pashut, when he does things, he does it because he's told to. He doesn't like to do it. He does it Kabbalat all. That's the idea of Kabbalat all. Okay.
And the Shema reacted negatively to being in form of a body. Yet every human is the Neshama. That's the thought.
It says that the Neshama and the body connect b'koach hamafli la'asot, only with the power of Hashem that can do anything. But in theory, it's the Neshama is spiritual, but it has an effect on the body. That's physical, that's material. And we know it. After a person's Neshama moves to the next world, so what the body doesn't stay in the same format. It changes. And why? Because it doesn't have the effect of the neshama. Wow, it's unbelievable that the neshama can have such an influence on something that is material. It's gashmi.
I have a problem. Why does God need avodim?
So that's already a deeper question. So why does he want this type of avodah of dira b'sachtoin? Why does he want a home in this world?
I'm not speaking of avodah b'sachtoin. I mean avodim. It's different.
What's the
avodim?
Yeah,
Why does he need avodim?
Because it shows a level of devotion to him. That a son, for example, there's a different type of avodah of a ben. He's a son of Hashem. He loves Hashem. He does it out of his own accord. But it's a different level of devotion.
But
It's
father,
not totally.
The father
Yeah.
wants the good for his son, not
Uh,
the sufferings.
but there's a certain level that Hashem says, you're my avodim. You're not my banim. Why? Because it conquers the person much more. A son does it out of his own accord. So that reaches a certain limit. The limit,
What good?
I'll give you an example. It says that on Simchas Pesach Shoeva, they used to have such tremendous simcha. Such tremendous simcha. To the extent that they even reached the simcha that was beyond limits. How could you reach a simcha that's beyond limits? So the answer that's brought in Chassidus is that it's not your simcha, it's Hashem's simcha. And the moment it's Hashem's simcha, Hashem is unlimited, therefore your simcha can also be unlimited. Now that's an abstract example, but I'll give you another example. when you go to the authorities or you want to pursue something, if you go in the way of a ben, you are limited to the father, to the extent of the father. If you're going in the mission of your father, so you're not going to do more than what your father himself would do in that case. And you can't. Sometimes you can't. Yafeh koach ben mikoach ha'av, that's true. But there's certain limitations that also the ben has, according to the abilities of the av. But if a person wants to exceed that, if a person wants to reach a higher level, he can do with the eved. Another thing that sometimes you asked about is, how can you combine love and fear? How can you do both of them together? A son cannot do both together. It's or you love the father or you're scared of him. The ability to switch between the two is only an eved that doesn't have his self-existence in the first place.
You can love and fear the Rebbe.
That's if you're an eved. Okay, that's there's a lot to speak about that. It's a whole other Indian. Okay, let's continue the third paragraph. Shai, would you like to read for us? Nevertheless,
it has been said that prayer or other benediction recited without Ravana, without the body, without the neshama soul, This means that just as in all creatures in this world, possessing a body and the soul, namely the nefesh of all living things and the ruah of all human flesh, and the neshama of all that has the spirit of life in its nostrils, among all living Egypt, all of which God animals and brings into existence ex nihilo, constantly by the light and vitality, which he imbues in them, but also the material body, and even the very inanimate stones and earth have within them light and vitality from the blessings from his blessed self, so that they do not revert to naught and nothingness like they were before. There is nevertheless no comparison or similarity whatever between the quality of the light and vitality that illuminated the body, and the quality of the light and vitality that illuminate the neshama, which is the soul of all living.
okay, Shakwa. Okay, so here he brings out a very important point that, of course, we know that there's a difference between the level of light that the body contains and the level of light that the neshama contains. The neshama's light is on a much higher level. The body's light is on a lower level. And in that same way, when a person invests his time in davening, for example, so when a person's davening, investing the effort in just saying the words, everyone can do. And sometimes everyone does it equally. There's not much energy put inside, but the intentions, the kavanah, that you cannot compare one to another. This person has in his mind the highest, deepest kavanah about thanking Hashem for something. Another person has a request, asking Hashem for something. Each one has a different kavanah, and in the kavanah, there are many, many levels. And they say about going to the Rabbi, is that in those days, right, they took the horse and the wagon. Also, the horse goes to the Rabbi. He travels with. But in his mind, it's something totally different. That's the guf and the nefesh. The guf, everyone's traveling. We're all on the same train, on the same flight to New York. This person's flying to New York for one reason. We're flying for a different. There's a different meaning in the two, right? So that's that has to do with the kavanah. That has to do with the meaning behind the things that we do. There's a great story from Rabbi Miruzhin. he used to tell the story about the length of the Golus. So there was once a simple Yid that came to daven Rosh Hashanah. He comes to daven, and he comes on time. He comes 8 in the morning. They're starting to daven. But he sees, okay, an hour goes by, an hour and a half goes by. Now they're by Chazar Sashat. It's a bit long for him. He's not used to this length. He sees everyone's crying. He also bursts out in tears. He's waiting for his breakfast, his meal. He says, okay, the crowd is silent now. Okay, probably they also know that it's we're about to end, and it's fine. We'll get to the meal. And then he sees again that it comes to the time of Kriyas HaTorah. Everyone's crying again. So he also cries. He says, well, probably they're also upset that, okay, it's dragging out. They've got the cholent waiting at home. So then it comes to Kiyas Shofar, and everyone's crying again. So he also starts crying. But then he sees everyone's relaxed, everyone's calm. What happened? Probably they think that the more you keep the cholent on the blech, the better the cholent is. Okay, so we'll continue on. But then they see that Shmonaser of Musaf, they're also doing Tkiyas, and everyone's also crying again. So he says it gets better and better and better after the time, but still it's enough. He wants to eat his cholent. And Rabbi Shlomo Ruzhin said that's a parable for the Galus, where during the times of the Galus, Hashem basically is preparing for us Beis HaMikdash. And he's making it look even better and better and better. But at a certain point, we know that it's getting better. We know that every moment that he waits, it's more beautiful and more special. But we already want the cholent. We already want the Beis HaMikdash. That was his mashal parable.
Wishful thinking.
Okay, we daven for that every single day. We daven for that. So yeah, that is the idea that the simple Yid going to shul, he has one thing in his mind. He's thinking about the cholent. He didn't eat breakfast properly. And the other Yid in shul, so yes, also there's differences. One's thinking about his children, another one's thinking about his health, another one's thinking about money, whatever it is. So that is about the meaning, the neshama. Let's continue the next paragraph. Ovadia. This is to be sure.
To be sure, both there is an identical light in terms of concealment of the countenance and in terms of the identical garments, wherein the light hides, conceals and clothes itself, for both body and soul are of this world, wherein the light and vitality moving from the breath of his blessed mouth is equally concealed in a general way, by virtue of the concealment of the countenance and graded descent in the progressive lowering of the worlds, by means of numerous and profound zolim, until the light has clothed itself in the Kalipat of God, in order to animate the totality of the material world, that is, all things which are permissible and in this world, and provident throughout all things are pure received with sustenance, for it is mediated into, as it were, as it is explained in the book.
Right.
Don't ask me to show it.
Okay.
We show my dad. She's got it.
So this is what he says, that these differences are also connected to the light of Hashem. And Hashem, there are two ways basically that Hashem shines the light. So the klipas noiga is the most common things that we have around us, and through that they receive their sustenance, their or. And it goes through tzimtzumim, right? Different tzimtzumim, blankets that are covering the light of Hashem, so to speak, or contractions, and all of these basically, at the end, they basically are the ones that give us here, you've got a simple object, a bottle of water, cookies, whatever it might be, a table, chairs, and these are the things that we are here working on, working with to bring the light of Hashem down here to the world. So ultimately, we are trying to return back to the original light, the light of Hashem that that is unlimited. But today we cannot maintain it. That's why Hashem needed to contract it. Through doing the Torah mitzvahs, we are bringing that light back here to the world. Okay, nevertheless, let's continue.
Can't find complete nude. Complete nude. Can't find it.
Yeah. Klipat Noga is basically a klipa, which means it's a peel. It's external from the regular light of Hashem, because it does not reflect automatically the light of Hashem directly. So that's why there are more contractions that Hashem uses in order to express that light. And on the other hand, it's not a peel that we cannot eat. There are certain peels you're not supposed to eat, but there are certain peels that you can eat, with certain fruits that you can. So in a certain sense, we can eat those peels, which means we can use them to bring them up to Kedusha.
It doesn't consume completely.
Sorry?
It doesn't consume completely
Why not?
because you can use it.
Yep, right. It's easier to show Hashem's light through that. So there are lights of Hashem, and this is the level of Kedusha, holiness. That level of light, and that's what we call it Tzaddik Kedusha. Tzaddik Kedusha is the holy side. What defines something and makes it holy? That it is nullified with the existence of Hashem. It has no self-existence. That's the Kedusha, that's the holy side. Or mitzvahs, for example, Torah, that's holy. When someone does a mitzvah, it's connecting it to Hashem. Then there's the klipa, which are the three klipas hatmeas, that they're totally impure, and there are certain levels there. We're not allowed to touch them. We're not allowed to elevate them. We cannot elevate them. Klipas noiga is between the two. So it's the light of Hashem that was concealed, but it wasn't concealed enough to forbid us from using it. We can use it also for bad. Right? A person can eat something and go and do something bad afterwards. So he's using the energy from that certain thing and he pulls it down. And that's why most of what we deal with is Klipat Noga today. Most of the things around are Klipat Noga. They're not necessarily holy, but they're not forbidden. So that's pretty much the idea of Klipat Noga. Is that understood? Is that good enough? Defining.
I guess so.
Okay. When it comes to the klipa, so sometimes it's easier to bring the result of the klipa. What is the klipa?
Is the klipa covering?
Yes, covering, a peel, a covering.
And you got the light? What is the light?
Right. The light is the light of Hashem. Klipat Noga. It's literally, I would translate it as the literal translation of klipa is a peel. Yeah. So maybe the klipa, the peel of the light would be a good definition for Klipat Noga.
Why was darkness created? Original creation was light.
Right.
Why is darkness created?
Right. There's a whole explanation to, and it speaks about it in Mamar. There's an advantage to light that comes after the darkness. So if it was only about light, it would not express enough the advantage that light has. When there is also darkness, so a person appreciates light much more. So, for example, if everything would be a mitzvah, and Hashem could create everything that is already like a mitzvah, like tefillin, that's the only things that we would deal with in the world. Only with mitzvahs. So there wouldn't be darkness. Everything would be light. There wouldn't be a chiddush. There's no innovation in that. There's nothing creative about it. Darkness brings the opportunity to show the special light.
The angels don't live in light.
Sorry?
The angels don't live in light.
Yeah, the angels are a good example. So there's nothing bad about that, but it's very limited.
How is the wording? Yitron Haor? Yitron HaChoshech?
Yitron ha'or min ha'choshech.
Yitron Haor min HaChoshech.
Yes. So King Solomon says that there's an advantage to light than darkness. Well, of course, light you can see, darkness. He's speaking about Yitron ha'or min ha'choshech, which is light that comes from the darkness itself. You can see further, right? Light that's in a whole space of darkness, so the light is emphasized.
Before the world was created, there was not even darkness.
Right. It was a different, we can't understand what existed, but it's mashu acher. Okay, let's continue. Nevertheless. That's the second page. The first,
for example, the flow of vitality wherewith God illuminates and animates by way of this garment is not the same for all of them in the manner of contraction and expansion, or in the corporal body and in the actual inanimate object like stones and earth. The illumination is one of greatest contraction which has no parallel, where the vitality is so minute as not to have even the power of vegetation. In plants, the illumination is not so greatly contracted. In general, all things are subdivided into 4 grades: mineral, vegetable, animal, and man. Speak. Corresponding with the 4 levels of the blessed name, Tetragrammaton, for which they received their influence.
Okay, so this is also very interesting. There are 4 parts to the world around us. We know it in Hebrew that it's called domem, tzomeach, chai, medaber. Right? So there's things that are still, that's how we would define domem. They are still, they don't have the ability to move. There's no movement. Tzomeach, that grows. Chai, that that lives, that means that it can also move from one space to the other. It's not stuck to just one specific area. And then medaber, the human species that can also talk. So there are 4 levels. These 4 levels are connected to the 4 letters of Hashem's name. Letter number 1, Yud K Vav K, right? So we've got the first Yud. That has the most intense level of light, and that gives life to medaber, to the people that can not only grow, not only move, but they can also talk. So that's the highest part of creation. That is the medaber. Then we have the tzomeach, so we have the chai. The chai are all the animals that can also grow, but not only grow, they can move from one place to the other. And they receive their living force from the letter He, which is the second letter. And then we go down to the Vav. The Vav is the tzomeach that grows.
Go up.
Sorry?
Don't go down, go up.
Go up, right. And then we've got the last He, that the last He is the domem, the still object that they cannot move even. They also get life from Hashem. So on the one hand, the light of Hashem, this is what he says, is evenly concealed. which means there's a certain blanket that covers the light from entering the world in the original format. But then, after that light basically gives life to the objects around us, there are differences. There's the medaber, a human that has much more life than a rock. We can understand that, right? So the rock has a limited amount of life, and a human has much more. So the soul of the human is on a much higher level, on a much higher madriga.
And then look at the Jew.
Okay, so you're right. It's for, I guess, for a different shir that there's, in certain Sfarim, it's brought down that a Jew is the fifth type of the creation. So there's a difference within the medaber, between the medaber and the Jew.
We will go over to you, man. We should delve in it.
Sorry?
We should delve in it.
You're right. We spoke about it generally, about the tafkid, about the mission that we have compared to the rest of the world, that we have more of a mission.
This is about the fifth.
I've got to find it. Let's see.
Very curious.
Not in all of the books it's brought down that there's a fifth part to the world, because they didn't want to make such a separation. But you see that there's something different, right? The percentage of the Nobel Prize winners, so in the Jewish population, it's much higher.
And this is already written in the second chapter of Tanya.
That a Yid has a chelek elokam imal mamash, right? That's what makes him different. That's what makes him different. Okay. Mordechai, let's continue in just.
And just as the illumination and flow of vitality in the inanimate and vegetable bear no comparison or parallel with the illumination and flow of vitality which is clothed in animals and man, although in all there is one equal light in the category of concealed continents, which is clothed in the same garment of all of them, namely the garment of Nogah. So, too, there is no comparison or parallel between the illumination and flow of the light of the blessed Ein Sof, the inwardness of his blessed will, without concealment of the continents and without any garment whatever, which irradiates and pervades the act of precepts. Likewise, in the case of precepts that depend on verbal articulation and utterance of the lips without kavanah, which articulation is regarded as real action, as mentioned above by comparison with the illumination and flow of the light of the Ein Sof, which irradiates and pervades the kavanah of the act of precepts, that a person intends, whilst engaged in performing them, to cleave to him, blessed be he, through fulfilling his will, inasmuch as he and his will are one and the same. Similarly, in the case of kavanah in prayer, the recital of Shema with its benedictions and all other benedictions, wherein through his intention, kavanah, he attaches his thought and intellect to him. May he be blessed.
Yes,
How is the translation of the word concealment in Hebrew?
Hastara.
So,
Oh.
what is the difference between Tzimtzum and Hastara?
Okay, so that's a very good point. So, and maybe that perhaps summarizes the idea that he's speaking about here. Everything goes through concealment, which means there's always a hastara. There's a blindfold in front of the sun, the godly light, and there has to be, because if there wouldn't be, so we would see the exact original same light, and there wouldn't be room for the nivraim, for the creation. Then there's another idea that is the intensity of that light that does come through. So the original light cannot come through. There are two things that Hashem makes in order to create the world. One is to put a blanket in front of his original light. And that is hastara. That's concealment. That's closed. That's concealed. The original light is not the same light that comes here to the world. But then, not everything's equal. After the world is here, there's a certain amount of light that enters a human body. And there's another amount of light that enters a rock, a stone, or a cow. And that it has to do with a tzimtzum, contracting the amount of light that does go and give chayut to
a
each.
matter of graduation.
Yeah.
So in reality, it's the same thing.
What do you mean? It's two types of tzimtzumim. One is to.
The same concealment, one is stronger, one is less.
So that's it's not only that one is stronger. One, it changes the color of the light. It's like a person has a globe, and he covers the globe. He paints it with red.
This is concealment.
That is concealment, because the original globe, the light, is concealed. That's it. It doesn't go through.
What's the tzimtzum?
And the tzimtzum says that with the light that is in the room, so one person will get this amount of light, and another one will get much less. That is tzimtzum.
Is it so?
It's quality and quantity. To make it simple, it's quality and quantity. Hester means that we are changing it in quality. It's not the same type of light. It's a different type. And then quantity, that's about the tzimtzum. Okay, how much? I'll give you another story to explain this idea again. When the Alter Rebbe was put in prison, I think this was the second time he was put in prison. What happened is that he put on tefillin in his room. And there were people in the room, and it says that they were so afraid, the people, that whoever stood could not sit, whoever sit could not stand up.
Again?
The people were so afraid, so scared, the Alter Rebbe wearing the tefillin, that whoever was standing could not sit down, and whoever was sitting could not stand up. So they asked the Alter Rebbe afterwards, what was this about? So the Alter Rebbe said that it says, "V'ra'u kol amei ha'aretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha," that all the nations around will see that the name of Hashem is called upon you. V'yar'u mimeka, and they will fear you. And the Gemara says, what are we talking about? Ki shem Hashem nikra alecha. What name of Hashem is called upon you? What are we referring to? The Gemara says, Eilu tefillin shebarosh. These are tefillin that are in the head. So they asked Alter Rebbe, so why doesn't it work for anyone else? By the way, the Rabbi did say to do it. This was the time before the Milchemet Sheshet Hayamim. And when you read the stories of the 6-day war, it's unbelievable, because a lot of the advanced, there was one book that I was reading, so this was a unit, they were mamish advanced, but their mission was it's a good siyur. Basically, they were the sayarim, which means they go and they go before the soldiers, and they find the locations where to break through, and they spot the enemy, and they know how to hide themselves, and they know how to navigate according to the stars and things like that. So that's the top unit. So they were saying that they did not have any fighting to do. They were just driving through the Sinai desert, and they were seeing Arabs just fleeing away, just running away. So it's very interesting about the miracles of the 6-day war, that in a lot of the cases there was not much there was fighting, of course, but it wasn't on a high scale. They lost from the first moment. So why are we speaking about so that had to do with the mitzvah of the Rebbe putting on tefillin. So, but if you put on tefillin today in an airport, so people look at you. No one's scared. People can continue on what they do, right? So the Alter Rebbe said, it doesn't say Eilu tefillin she'al harosh. It says Eilu tefillin she'barosh. It's not the tefillin that a person puts on top of his head. It's the tefillin that are within the head. So here we see again the importance of kavanah. Yes, it's very important to do the physical mitzvah. But that's not enough. That's not always what's going to give a second dimension to what we do. If we want the full influence of the mitzvah, we've got to have the kavanah as well. So yes, the mitzvah itself is physical, but with the kavanah, we get a lot of added value. That's a good question. Probably Moshe Rabbeinu.
What did you ask?
The first to finish.
Who was the first yoker?
Okay. So we're going to stop over here.